When will AMD and NVIDIA stop relying on the used market as an excuse to not release a competent sub $200 GPUs? Are they actually using that as an excuse, the used market? Have they... It's a lie
I'm
if
not
they
sure.
are.
Well, they don't want used GPUs to be sold because a used GPU gets them no money.
No.
So they'd rather you buy their crappiest, lowest end GPU.
Yeah, they want you to... AMD wants you to buy the 6500 XT and pretend that you can't get like an RX 580 or a GTX 1650.
For like $50 less than the actual cost of the
or
car.
even the same price,
Yeah.
but technically it's a better product. It certainly is, in my opinion. So, yeah, I don't know if they've used that for an excuse, so I can't say they have because I haven't seen that happen. But if they are lying because they 100% want to generate a new sale because that puts more money in their pocket, even if they're only making a small profit margin. We've talked about this time and time again. You know, they don't want to neglect. There's all this hoo-ha about them neglecting the $200 US price point. They have no interest in neglecting that price point. If that's where the bulk of the market still is, and that's where, you know, the mainstream is, they'll want to service that mainstream audience. They'll want to cash in on them. The problem is those people are being forced to go up to the $300 bracket or more because they were getting outbidded essentially by cryptocurrency miners. That's no longer happening. As we've spoke of, the GPU market has seen a huge price correction. It's seen a massive cooling off. There's nowhere near the demand. Lots of cards are sitting on shelves now, even at drastically reduced prices compared to what we were seeing only months ago. So whether that can happen for the next generation, I doubt it. I think the next generation we're going to see it become much more competitive. And then if we don't see other external factors affect the following generation, then I think we could see prices continue to correct further, or at least the direction we would like to see them trend in.
Yeah, the reason why we don't see products in the $200 market is that it's not just being outbid by cryptocurrency miners, it's NVIDIA and AMD want to encourage you to spend as much money as they possibly can, which is why they always release the highest end cards first. They always make you wait until the mainstream cards come out because there's no reason they can't just launch them at the same time or even first. No technical reason whatsoever. They could just do that. And why often some of the lowest tier cards appear to be the worst in terms of features, in terms of value often. Often it's the tier above the lowest tier that's the best value. That's another trick to encourage you. For example, instead of buying a 6500 XT, you buy a 6600. Instead of buying a 3050, you buy a 3060. Or they've now got the GTX 1630, right? Like instead of buying that, you buy the next tier up. So all these companies are trying to encourage you throughout the release cycle into spending more money. So eventually it comes down to the point where they've done all the tactics they can. They've released it late, they've made you wait ages, they've given you all the incentives that you can to buy a high-end card, and then you're just refusing to spend more money. As a buyer, you're firmly wedded to the $200 price tier, and then finally they're like, well, for those buyers, it's either the $200 card or nothing, so we should probably offer a $200 card. And that's how the market goes for the low end. I would love to see a different scenario where companies care about people who only have $200 to spend and are entry-level gamers, but they simply don't care. They care about money, they care about profits and shareholders, which is the case for every single company. This is not this isn't some news to people, hopefully. They don't care about you as a consumer, they care about their money, and so all their decisions are based around that.
Yeah, so instead of fighting over who's better, AMD or NVIDIA, if gamers could I'm talking about a fantasy land here that is absolutely not true or possible or going to happen. But if gamers could unite and go, no, the majority of us, the bulk of us, we are only going to pay $200 US for a GPU. AMD and NVIDIA, it's on either of you to produce the best product at that price point, and you get our money. And then you will see them heavily compete to make the best product they can while still making a profit.
Yep. And
then you'll get a great $200 card. But while that's not the majority of gamers, while the majority of gamers are like, well, you know, I can probably justify spending $300 or $400, that's the situation. Yep. But as I said, I think with less demand from cryptocurrency miners,
it opens up new possibilities.
Yeah, I think obviously we're already seeing a cooling off and a price correction. Whether we'll get like really great value $200 cards is in the future is yet to be seen, but it will certainly improve to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, obviously one issue with this current generation has been the supply situation. If people are still buying cards at every high price point and there's only a limited amount of cards that can be made, then they've got a big incentive to, instead of selling a $200 GPU, to sell a $1,000 GPU because they can make a lot more money from doing that. But obviously, fingers crossed, next generation, supply won't be as much of an issue. So then, again, like we're talking about, they can produce those cards when it comes to the point where people will stop buying the high-end cards.
It's funny how it's worked out, because for so long AMD hasn't been competitive beyond the mid-range.
Yep.
And people, myself included, have been thinking, wow, it'd be so great when AMD gets their act together and they can create a 5700 XT type product that competes at the high end, so a 2080 Ti competitor for that generation. That will get the GPU pricing wars going. They'll be, no. Because of other reasons, but also it seems like AMD and NVIDIA have sort of done a gentleman's agreement where they're like, well, we'll both just push prices high and may the best man win type deal. Whereas AMD hasn't gone, we can make a 6800 XT that's sort of an RTX 3080 competitor, and we're going to do it for $100 less.
But I think what we've seen,
or even more.
I think what we would have seen this generation if availability wasn't as ridiculous as it was, I think a lot of AMD's cards at the price that they set wouldn't have been very competitive. And I think they would have had to drop pricing, because if you could walk into a store and buy an RTX 3070 for $500 or a 6700 XT for $480, I reckon a significant percentage are buying the 3070 at that price point. So I think they would have had to have done something there, especially when the 3060 Ti was $400.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So
we'll never know.
We'll never know.
But I think you're right.
But I think, I think there will be more competition next generation.
Well,
at least I'm hoping so.
We'll certainly have our answer. You can go and watch Hub clips in a year or so and see if Tim was right that would have happened for this generation had it not been for cryptocurrency mining and a few other factors. Anyway, probably answered that one, so we'll move on.